So hello, good evening. My name is Nancy Stephanz, and I'm going to give you a talk tonight about our new Clallam County Olympic Home Share program. And I'm going to show you first a couple of visual aids and things that you might want to consult if you're thinking about becoming a home sharing host yourself. The first is this little book called Sharing Housing, a guidebook for finding and keeping good housemates. It's by Anna Marie Pluhar and was published about 12 years ago before we had all this internet stuff. She did all of her searches for housemates with just Craigslist. And this young woman, who was probably about 38 when she published this book, had home shared with 21 different people by that time. So her advice is well tested and very practical, and I would highly recommend that you read this. Another thing you may see around town, I hope, will be this two-sided flyer that the Port Angeles Chamber of Commerce helped design. The front is just pictures and color to catch your attention and the name of the program, which is Olympic Home Share. But on the back are details about why we chose this company Nesterly to work with. So it is a two-sided flyer, and if you want a copy, I can email the PDF to Ellen and she can forward it to anyone who wants it. And now we'll get started with the talk. So this is going to be divided in a few different parts. The first are just to explain to you why we chose Nesterly as the company to work with. And then there will be a couple of slides that show you some practical data from a 43-year-old program called Home Share Vermont to just prove to you that this can be quite beneficial financially to a community, as well as in terms of quality of life for the people who choose to do it. And then we'll go through some screenshots of what the sites look like if you decide to browse and maybe think about creating a listing yourself or sign up to be a tenant. And then we'll go through some rules that apply here in Washington State that you need to be aware of. So I got interested in this because, as you all know, the cost of housing has gone up markedly ever since COVID. And I saw this article online at Vox.net in February of 2025 that claimed there are 44 million empty bedrooms in the US. These are already built houses, the children have moved out, the adults are probably still living there, so there's lots of empty space if people are willing to home share. And the definition of home sharing is renting a bedroom and possibly an adjoining bathroom to someone you are not related to, and then sharing the public areas of the house with that person. And if just 10% of these bedrooms could be rented out in this kind of program, it would be so beneficial. So the fastest growing group of people who are homeless in the US today are women over the age of 60. And my husband, who runs the volunteer medical program here, started seeing that when the COVID eviction moratorium expired. And when he first started volunteering there, it was rare for anyone to be at Serenity House who was over the age of 40. But the last couple of years, it's rare to see a new tenant there who is less than 50. So this is a problem here as well as across the US. And I had become a volunteer for SHIVA, which stands for Statewide Health Insurance Beneficiaries Advisors, and we try to counsel people about Medicare. So I've been encountering people with very small Social Security checks, which is all they have to live on. And so again, the risk of more and more of our seniors becoming homeless because their income just doesn't keep up with the cost of living these days is increasingly likely, and I want to prevent that from happening. So again, partly it's the Social Security checks are too small, but again, to even qualify for a Social Security check, you have to have worked at least 40 quarters and provided the information about your wages to Social Security. So if you're a woman back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, you weren't encouraged to work outside the home. If you did, it might have just been a cash-only job like a waitress, and your earnings weren't even reported. And then if you weren't married to someone who had worked that long, and you weren't married to them for 10 years, you don't get any survivor benefits at all.
One second, Nancy. Could you unmute your mic and I will mute my mic and let's see if that is better for the folks at home
Mute my mic.
on your computer or turn your volume up.
Okay, the computer.
David, no, that doesn't work. No, go ahead and turn your volume off again. That didn't work.
Something to make it, there we go, okay. All right, so we started looking around for home sharing companies that would have a sense of conscience, let's call it, who wanted to help people who were low income and weren't just in it for financial gain for themselves. And I first heard about a company called Nesterly about 2020 during the pandemic. There was a graduate student named Noelle Marcus in Boston who couldn't find a place to live. So she decided to create a matching program for elderly homeowners who had lots of space with graduate students. And that's how this company got started. She has continued to make it as affordable as possible for the people who actually participate in the program. And we'll get into details of that here in a little bit. But she also is really big on creating a safe platform for people to use. And Nesterly has been operating as a company in several different jurisdictions of the US since 2017 and have never had an eviction case. So I was really interested in learning more about them. They require 2 letters of reference for everyone who participates in the program, the homeowners who will be called hosts in their program, as well as the potential tenants who are called guests. They also do background checks on all of these people, and you have to pass both of these, which are conducted by actual human beings to make sure that what you say is true to get into the program. Their background checks consist of criminal, sex offender, frequent address change, and also social security verification. The Nesterly will help you with their social worker employees actually craft your contracts, and they provide the contracts. Once you sign a contract, that's the only upfront cost to the host or the guest. And it's a one-time fee that varies between $95 and $195 when the contract is signed. If it's a 3-month or less lease, it's $95. If it's 1 year, it's $195. So there's a gradation scale there in the middle. The Nesterly keeps 2.5% of the agreed upon monthly rent, and clients must use Nesterly's financial system to pay and be paid. But I think this is also a perk because you never have to ask your tenant for money. So Stripe is the financial system they use, and they pull the agreed upon rent out of the tenant's account 3 days before the end of the month. They send the 2.5% to Nesterly, and they deposit the rest into the host's account the first day of the next month. So these employees, who again are mostly social workers, will also call their clients every month to make sure things are going well. And if there's an issue that comes up in the meantime, you call them and you say, hey, can you help mediate this? Can you help with this? And they will be happy to do that. If the homeowner requests, they will do income verification. And their other program, which is called Task Exchange, is designed to get the cost of rent down even more. So for example, if you're paying a lawn care company $200 a month to mow your lawn twice a month, you could ask your renter to do that instead and lower their rent. And they would fulfill that part of the contract without having to pay you as much money, but it would also save you money. They suggest minimum wage per hour of work done per month, but again, this is something you would negotiate with your tenant. They do not require first month rent, last month rent, and security deposit, which I also like, because when I talked to Mary Beck at the Boys and Girls Club, she says, I can pay my employees enough to pay the monthly rent, but they cannot save up enough for this first month, last month of security deposit. So when I spoke about this to the SQUIM Association of Realtors, I said, anybody who comes to you looking for a place to rent who can't come up with that much cash, tell them about this program. Maybe it will help them. If the host wants any of those, they can put it in the contract, but they have to collect that money themselves. Nesterly will not do that for them. Renter's insurance is not required. It is highly recommended. And homeowners are advised to be sure they have home share insurance. And in this state, that's called a room rental rider. Okay, now here's the new stuff that if you heard my talk last year, you haven't heard about. These two next slides come from Home Share Vermont's annual report from 2025. And you can't read all the stuff on the right-hand side of the slide. So I just copied for some of the pertinent facts on the left-hand side. This first one shows about the financial benefit that home sharing can provide a community. So again, this has been in operation for 43 years. And if you go to their website, you can see that every 3 or 4 years, they added more counties. So I'm still not sure if it covers the entire state of Vermont, but it probably covers most of it. And in 2025, between 100 and 125 people at any one time were home share hosts, and 300 people benefited. And that doesn't sound like all that many, does it? But the hosts saved over $560,000 because their guests provided 38,000 hours of assistance that they didn't have to pay somebody else to do. And the host received over $395,000 in rental income. Average rent, though, in their state was only $379. So I don't expect ours to get that low. But if we can keep it $800 a month or less, that's going to help a lot of people. The guests saved over $880,000, almost $1 million in rent expense because they didn't have to pay market rates. And think what you could do with that. Maintain your car, pay off your student debt, save up for a place of your own. This is really incredible. So Vermont believes that their return on investment is outstanding. They put about $500,000 each year into this, but the investment in state funding allowed Vermonters to save almost $1.5 million. So what about quality of life? They survey their hosts and they say, how does this help you? And if we just look at the top 4 on this list, 80% feel happier, 79% feel safer, 79% are less lonely, 71% enjoy their home more. And if you go down a little bit farther, which might be a benefit to a lot of younger family members in other states, 44% call their family less often for help. So these are all very valuable social and quality of life benefits. So how do we do it if we're interested? The Port Angeles Chamber of Commerce was the entity who bravely signed the contract with Nesterly, and we'll talk about that some more at the end of this talk. If you go to portangeles.org, you'll see their website, and at the top right-hand corner of this slide, you'll see Olympic Home Share. So if you click on that, there it is, nice and big so you can see it. You'll see this information page. It's kind of general information. When you scroll down through that, at the bottom, you'll see learn more about Nesterly. If you click on that green button, it goes straight to the Nesterly website. If you scroll on down further, you'll find a link to a video of this presentation. So if you want to watch it again, you can. It also has a bunch of frequently asked questions and their answers down there. So let's pretend like we're going to go straight to Nesterly because we want to sign up. So nesterly.com is the website to do that. And it looks like this. And you'll see at the upper right-hand corner a login button if you already have an account, or a sign up button if you don't. And then right before, right to the left of that is a browse listings thing. And you'll see select your city, budget, move-in date, browse listings, all down there. So let's pretend like we want to create an account to list something. So again, we go to the sign up button and we'd say, I'm looking to rent a room. So that's where you put that little check mark. And then you have to choose your city or region. So you would click on that and you would scroll down to where it says Olympic Peninsula. So right there. And click on that. And then you would go over to browse listings to see what's already up. And you can do that right now at home if you want to. Last I checked, about 2 weeks ago, before I went out of town for a while to help with a new grandchild, there were 4 listings up. But it's free to search this site, to look at their FAQs, to do anything you want. It's all free. So feel free to explore it and recommend to your friends that they do. So we would click on Olympic, in this one here, we're going to say, I'm going to rent a room. And then they're going to ask you why. I think that's just for their demographics, extra income, social connection, household help, just checking it out. And you'll see over here on the right-hand side, help, things that are on every page. And so again, they have frequently asked questions, and you can leave them a message at any time. You can send them an email. You could call them. Their number is on the very first web page. So then if you're going to create an account, it's very simple. It's basically just name, phone number, gender, date of birth, email. And then you would tell us a little bit about yourself. You would come up with a unique identifier for your property that isn't specific about where you are. And because they want to keep that anonymous until you decide to reveal that information to a potential tenant. And then you add a profile picture, which you can do through their website. Their community compact basically just says, we can't discriminate on who we send to you, but it's entirely up to you who you choose to be your tenant. And again, down here for the unique name that would be visible to guests, in this example, they're just saying a 3-bedroom house in Beacon Hill. So again, you want a brief description, but not enough to tell people where you actually live. And then how much rent are you going to charge? Are you going to charge utilities? When is it available? How long would your lease be? And then you upload photos of your listing. So again, they will help you with this if you have trouble with it. If you don't have a smartphone or email address, you can still use the system with the help of a friend who does have a smartphone. They could take the pictures of the front of the house and 2 or 3 of the area that you want to rent, and then have the friend email the pictures to Nesterly at hello@nesterly.com. Include in the email your name and region, and Nesterly will add the pictures to your listing, and then you can follow up with a call to make sure they received them and they got them connected to you. And again, if you have an email, they'll call you. Normally, find an email, but if you don't have an address, you don't have to. They will help set up a secure chat video, or your friend's smartphone could do that, however you want to start to talk to your potential guest. So now let's go through some rules that you have to know about here in Washington. These first 2 are pretty old. They're from the Landlord-Tenant Act, and home sharing is covered by the Landlord-Tenant Act. So you have to supply, if you're the landlord, reasonably adequate keys to get in and out of the house. Makes sense, right? And it also stipulates that once you rent that area, you cannot go in there unless it is an emergency or by written notice of date and time delivered at least 1 day prior. The tenant cannot refuse a landlord entry, but can request a different date and time. So homeowners do become landlords when they home share, which is why it's covered by the Landlord-Tenant Act. But this was recently passed at the end of December. So this applies to any kind of co-living situation, and home sharing is part of co-living. It's RCW 36.70A.535 if you want to look it up. But it basically just says the rooms that are rented have to have a lockable door. So it doesn't actually say you have to be able to get in from the outside hallway with a key, but I would think if you were a tenant, that's what you would want. So I did call around to the Chambers of Commerce to ask for recommendations about people who would be happy to install that kind of doorknob if you don't want to do it yourself. Clark Home Care is here in PA, and Jay's Home Solutions is in Sequim. This is the best good news, I think, for this program that has come out in a long time. If any of you have lived in collective interest communities, they're called CICs, and they are apartments or condominiums or homeowners associations. Many of them have language that say that only the members of a single family can live on that property. And that is no longer true. So in June of 2024, a new RCW went into effect that covers the whole state of Washington. It's for homeowners associations, it's RCW 64.38.170. For apartments and condominiums, those numbers are at the bottom. But I think here in our county, it's the homeowners associations that we're most concerned with. And it basically says you can't put new language in to a new covenant that says this. And it also says you can't enforce already existing language that says that. So you cannot regulate or limit the number of unrelated persons that may occupy a lot. And if we could convince the homeowners associations to talk about this option to their tenants, the people who already live there and own those homes, I think a whole bunch of them are now inhabited by widows or widowers, and this could help a lot of them stay on that property as long as they want to, because that's what most people want to do. They want to stay in their own home as long as they can. Now the state is trying to help them do that with this new law. So Nesterly does keep income records for the hosts. Rental income is federally taxable as ordinary income. IRS publication 527, residential rental property on pages 23 and 24 is the pertinent guide for this. And some home improvements can allow tax deductions. And to report that, you would use Schedule E, Form 1040. So irs.gov is where you would find that to download a PDF and find answers to simple questions. If you were planning a major renovation and didn't know how much you could deduct, you'd probably have to consult a tax professional to help you. But if you're just going to paint the walls or put in new carpet or something, this should be all you would need. And you can get some of that money back. This is also important for anyone who receives assistance with property tax or utilities or are on Medicaid or Medicare savings programs. You would really want to talk to your case manager or the person who administers that assistance program to find out how much rent you could actually charge and still receive these benefits. So that is critically important. You don't want to charge too much rent if it's going to kick you out of Medicaid or a Medicare savings program. You'd have to charge a whole lot of rent to make up for that. In terms of property tax forgiveness and utilities, I'm not sure, but again, you would want to talk to your case manager to know the upper income that you would be allowed to have and still receive those benefits. And then you'd have to decide, is it worth giving them up or not? And of course, you need to know the upper limit of income for your tax bracket too. But I think with Nesterly's help, the benefits will outweigh the risks. For the host, you get companionship, extra income for expenses, help with tasks. To the guest, companionship again, being able to save money for once, and a decent place to live with probably more room in it than you could find in any advertised apartment on the market now. If you look at some of these listings, they're often the entire second floor of a property. So it's often more of a suite than a bedroom, and they look really nice. If we can free up some apartments as supply increases, rent should decrease, right? And I think we could come up with potential new types of families. I'd love to see 2 single parent families sharing a house. One who owns it, but perhaps just got divorced and still has to pay that mortgage. And one who's been running something else. They both each have 1 child and they can work offsetting shifts. They could help each other with childcare. And that would be a godsend too, because 1 child daycare now is about $1,300 a month. And I don't know how any of these families do it. Or if you had, say, 2 or 3 preschool age children, so you couldn't work because you can't afford daycare. But if you could put all those kids in 1 bedroom and rent another one to a retired educator to serve as their task exchange as a live-in nanny, that would benefit you financially. You could go back to work and those children would be ready for school. Your nanny would make sure of it. Win-win for everybody. So again, here on the peninsula, we need to take care of each other. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the 3 matches we already have. So our site went live on February 4th. And by 2 months and 2 weeks after that date, Nesterly contacted us and said, we have 2 matches. And within another week, we had 3. And they said, this is the fastest this has ever happened in their system. So I just still get chills down my spine thinking about that. And the first match is already living together. The other 2 will take place sometime this month. So the match that has already happened is a 77-year-old couple that live on a farm. They wanted some help. They found a 37-year-old female veteran who is pregnant. And so it will be helping 2 seniors and a single mom and a veteran with the very first match. The other 2, the hosts are both widows in their 80s. And one of them will be renting to a seasonal worker at the park who is coming back for a 2nd or 3rd summer. and she's 25 years old. And the other one is renting to a temporary hospital worker. So again, if you want to try this idea, but you're not sure and you're still scared of the bad tenant idea, which I hear all the time. Again, if people can get through Nesterly's vetting system, I think the risk is very small, but I can't tell you it's non-existent. But what you could do is specify that you want a temporary worker at the park, at the hospital, construction. There are lots of temporary worker jobs here, and you could start with that and see how it goes, because you would know those people would be leaving at the end of your lease. That would not be an issue. If you think it's a great idea, but you can't do it right now, we need money to pay for this. So our contract, the first year is paid for, but we need to continue it at least 2 or 3 years to get it in everyone's consciousness. The first year cost us just under $40,000 because we had a $5,000 onboarding fee up front. After that, it's $2,895 a month. So for our second year, we'll just need just under $35,000. So the way to do that and get a federal tax deduction is to send a check or donor advised funds to the United Way of Clallam County, because they are a 501c3 organization. And then on the memo line, you indicate the Olympic Home Share Fund as the program to support. And that's the end of my talk. Please talk about this to everyone you know who lives alone, who is maybe lonely, maybe not, but is wondering how they're going to pay their property tax this year, or their mortgage if they still have one. Everybody's having trouble with money right now, and this could help a lot of people on both ends of the spectrum. Questions? Anyone online?
Doesn't look like anyone online has any questions. If you have a question, you can unmute and ask your question.
Mike's got one.
Ready? Well, yeah, if you can rent to one and you have a big enough house, can you rent to two?
Yes, you can rent to as many people as you have bedrooms for each renter. So if you have an 8-bedroom house and you want to rent 6 of them, you can do that. You're going to have to negotiate various personalities to get them all to get along, but yes, you can. And
Yeah,
also,
another
if
one.
you are a renter in a 3-bedroom house and your landlord allows you to sublet, you can do that too. You just have to have a letter from your landlord that that's okay.
I got another one that's probably more technical and a lot more difficult to answer. I have a cannabis farm on my farm. Where does that go, if anywhere?
Sounds like a good task exchange option to me. You'd have to talk to Nesterly to be sure, but if you wanted someone to help work that farm for you,
No, I don't think so. I mean, maybe, I do need a bookkeeper, but yeah, I don't think in terms of working on the ground or in the building, I don't know. I hadn't thought of that. I don't think, not yet anyway.
okay. Well, I'm going to go back to that page. It's Nesterly's homepage, because their number to contact them with questions is in the upper left-hand corner. There it is. So 877-958-8785. Call them and ask them.
Oh, that Gracia is good. Is that how you say her name?
Gracia?
Gracia? She's supposed to call me, I think, this week. I emailed her today. We've been going back and forth a little bit. So,
Yeah, she lives in our time zone. So if you call in our afternoon, she's the one you'd get anyway. I think their other staff are still on the East Coast. But if you called, say, between 3 and 5, you'd get Gracia.
well, which number? There's a couple.
I just start with that 877-958-8785 one.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm super busy, so yeah, I'll find time and then try to remember to do it.
Yeah, that's sometimes that's the hardest part.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. Anybody else?
So we'll have all the information. We can have it here in the office, but I can also email it out to anyone who wants the
The
flyer.
flyer?
And
Yeah, I'll email it
Yeah.
to you. It's a PDF. Spread them around. It is 2-sided, just to let you know, so it will come up as 2 pages to print.
to hit the goal of what the cost of the program is? How, do you have an idea of how many rental properties you need to have active to meet that goal, roughly?
We don't have a definite goal. I will be thrilled if we get 10 matches in the first year, but the way we started out, plus the fact that at our last monthly Zoom meeting with Nesterly, they told us there are 30 people now in Clallam County going through the reference and background checks to become renters. I just need hosts now. We could get 30 if we can find enough hosts.
Right.
But the cost is paid by, people who donate money.
Oh, okay. So that nothing comes.
There's no cost to the
Okay.
host or the tenant except when they sign that contract, and then the 2.5% of the rent is kept by Nesterly.
Okay.
That doesn't go towards the cost of the contract. Yeah. So the city of PA is helping pay for this. The EDC of Clallam County is helping pay for this. And then I found enough private donors to pay for the rest for this first year. And we'd love to have more donors. Okay, well, thanks for your attention.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anybody online have a question? Doesn't look like it. David says, thank you for presenting.
Thank you, Nancy. It was a
Thank
great
you.
presentation. Great presentation. Sorry. Excuse
I'll
me.
be at the senior center on May 27th at 2 p.m. if you find out anyone else who wants to hear it in person. And they can always just watch that video. It's on the Clallam County Port Angeles site. It's also on the United Way site.
Perfect.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you.
All right.